For 8 years, my 35-year-old wife and I were wed. That was 5 years ago. She made the decision for us to be childless. Although I had always claimed that our marriage and relationship were happy, I can now see that it was beneficial to her. This is my tale. I've always been the type of person that gets decent grades but isn't popular, the nerd. Because of the bequest from my grandparents, and some wise investments made by my parents, I come from a very rich family. Even though I didn't have to work or attend college to lead a comfortable life, I'm glad I did. During my first year in college, I met my wife. She was looking for a tutor when she was in my class. She received a scholarship. Our time together increased steadily, but never over the weekend. She would still go out on the weekends even though I wasn't the gregarious sort. We eventually began dating, and we were married shortly after my graduation. In retrospect, it seems like she made decisions for us from the day we started dating. During the early half of our marriage, my wife worked, and she was laid off when her company underwent downsizing. She became a wife who stayed at home most of the time. She essentially squandered my money on her affluent lifestyle because she had friends, traveled, and enjoyed many lunches and meals with them. Even though I recall our early love life being intense, it's only in my recollection. I was in an automobile accident when I was 29 years old. My car was totaled by an allegedly intoxicated driver, yet I still don't remember that day. My 2 weeks in a coma were spent. I had a lot to learn how to do again after I woke up. For months later, I returned to my job. My wife put me in the spare room when I got home. She claimed that because I was snoring, it had been that way for some time. I said nothing, but I was aware that this was unusual. I think the accident helped me become more clear-headed. Even though it was obvious that the marriage was over, I was still determined to try to keep it together. I tried everything, but nothing worked. For me, turning 30 was the clincher. She wasn't home when I got home. She and her buddies were enjoying a day at the spa. I watched a movie, placed a takeaway order, and made a choice. I desired to be free. I went to my lawyer the following morning to begin drafting divorce documents. I stopped talking to her when it wasn't required. I gradually began to sell everything that held sentimental worth for me. I gave her everything I had. My new vehicle was purchased, and I parked it in a garage not far from our house. After a month, the only items I had left were a projector, a portable screen, a few laptops, and my clothes. All I required to work while traveling. I didn't give up my work. I made all the arrangements for it to be remote. I stayed at home 2 months after my birthday while my wife went out to lunch once again with her girls. I took the new car, loaded up with everything I needed, tucked a letter and the divorce papers under my bed in the spare room, and wondering how long until she noticed, I shut the door to my house for the last time. I made the decision to travel cross-country and see all the places I had wanted to see, but had been unable to since my wife had not wanted to. She had no right to inquire because of our prenuptial agreement. I went into detail in the letter. I informed her that I was leaving and that I would leave the house and the car to her, along with a monthly payment for precisely a year, after which she would be on her own. I was so foolish that I neglected to explain my departure. But in my favor, this would work out. My wife texted me 10 days after I departed, inquiring as to where I was and whether this was a joke. When she called, I didn't answer. I never use a phone while operating a vehicle. She sent me text after text that night, including one automated that said, "I am driving, I will call back later." I decided to check the texts before I called her back when I stopped at a motel. She started by questioning if this was a joke, then she inquired about my return date, and finally begged me to return, not understanding why I had left. She then made a statement. She apologized, said it meant nothing, and threatened to cut him off. I was unaware that she was having an affair. She was at her parents' when I contacted her on her mobile. This is a strategy one saw on TV. I hung up when she started ranting at me. I gave it a minute before calling again. I hung up on her again as she began to yell. After 2 minutes, I called her back, and this time, instead of getting yelled at, I started a conversation. I informed her that she would let me speak first, and that she could ask questions once I had finished speaking. When I left, I told her why. Even though we were married, we didn't really live like roommates because they at least acknowledged one another. I can't recall the last time we did something together or had a chat. Although I can't recall when we last had sex, I know it was before to the accident. Before I left, I informed her I stopped talking for a month and sold everything I owned in the house, and she didn't even notice. That she didn't realize I was gone for 10 days after I departed. I would have turned around right away if she had called the day I left. After trying to apologize, I said, "Thank you for admitting to the affair. I really didn't know about that." When she requested me to return, I questioned why. I would think about it if she could tell me why. For me, what was in it? What would be altered? When she was unable to respond, I told her goodbye and gave her my lawyer's contact information before blocking her. I bought a new phone the following day and gave the old one back to the hotel. My attorney informed me via email that the divorce papers had been signed 2 weeks later. I had no restrictions. I fulfilled my promise. All the paperwork that would give my lawyer possession of the house and the automobiles has already signed by me. For a year, the bank will automatically transfer a certain sum to our joint account each month. Right now, where are we? I've been working remotely while traveling the country for the past 5 years. I had a purpose at last to start using social media. I shared my whereabouts and plans on the internet. I spent a few weeks in one location before driving to the next. A year after I separated, my ex-wife began following me on Instagram, and I was curious enough to check out her public posts. She uploaded pictures with her partner shortly after I departed, so I don't intend to follow her back. She did not disparage me, at least not on Instagram, to her credit. They broke up, reportedly, 2 months after I moved out. That was pretty much the last update I had about her. I now have a sexual life as well. It turns out that casual sex was simpler after I put myself out there. Not a committed partnership. Years later, I'm returning to my hometown. I want to go to a reunion that is happening. I may stay for 2 months, but after that I'm heading to Canada. I won't be aggressively avoiding my ex, but I also don't have any plans to look her up. I'll recognize her when I see her, if not, I won't. Okay, so this tale raises a really intriguing query. I can now ask you guys a question since OP isn't seeking guidance or judgment. I read another account about an OP who surprised their partner with divorce papers. Just 2 or 3 days ago. Of course, that partner ended up being a total psychopath, but at first we were unaware of that. Now, I did say that it wasn't polite to just show up with divorce papers, but in this instance, I think the circumstances are different, thus what the OP did was okay. The word is nuance, in my opinion, although I could be mistaken. If so, do correct me in the comments area. Here are the changes I've noticed. In the last article, the OP stated that they were seeking treatment in an effort to improve their relationship. Through counseling, they discovered that their spouse was asexual, which they then disclosed to the OP. For OP, this was a definite deal breaker, and it was very reasonable that OP wanted to end their relationship. Simply put, I disagreed with the OP's proposed course of action. But in the case of this OP, I do believe that it would be best to simply walk away from the divorce paperwork because the OP's wife has long since ceased to be a wife. She wasn't even attempting, she wasn't even interacting, and she was unaware that OP had departed. Unlike the other OP who was in couples counseling and they were attempting to work things out, they hadn't spoken in a month. Granted, the fact that OP's wife today is unfaithful strengthens the divorce, but OP was unaware of this at the time he acted. So, the query is, do you people believe that I'm mistaken? Do you guys think that I shouldn't be able to get away with blindly serving my partner with divorce papers like I wasn't with the first one? Now that I've heard from you all in the comments, let's move on to the next chapter of the narrative. We'll wrap up the story with the update following that, which is a Q&A with a lot more details. Since my last post received a lot of questions, I'll address the most often asked ones here. I've had questions and even criticism from others for giving her the house. The response is truly fairly straightforward. I desire to depart. I decided that I would travel and that I didn't want any obligations. It would have taken a while to sell the house, leaving it to her was the quickest route. And my conscience would not have permitted it. I tried to be a decent person, even though she may not be. My conscience would have been troubled if I had abandoned her. Recall that I married her for a reason. I did love her once. Some believe this to be a hoax because I was away during COVID-19. Although the solution is not so straightforward, it can be summed up in 2 words: legally and cautiously. Regarding my job, I've spent the last 5 years working remotely. I moved to a new firm and role 3 years ago, yet I'm still remote. It was never required to enter an office. Yes, the company did offer the satellite internet connection that I invested in. I can now access fast internet wherever I go. Every 2 weeks, I have KPIs, or key performance indicators, that I must meet. As long as I satisfy the KPIs, I am unable to choose my own work hours. Regarding Canada, I'm only visiting, I'm not moving there. I spend a few weeks at one location, then I move on to the next and do it again. My social media accounts have been requested by several people. I will not distribute it. The anonymity was the reason I came. There are still plenty of folks I know who don't require to hear the entire tale. For the past few years, I have only allowed friends and family to follow me on social media. My former spouse began following me, and I had no idea that the privacy settings existed. I never bothered to unfollow her, even though I do now. I talked to my therapist about a variety of topics. Yes, by leaving in that manner, I unintentionally gave her an opportunity to catch on and stop me. I did not want her to believe I was doing myself any harm. I wanted her to hold me back from walking out. Even if I want to say that I'm over it, I'm returning to my hometown in 5 years, and there's a chance I'll run into her. That's what made me write this. Perhaps I shouldn't have brought up the subject of sex, but after that marriage and its extremely boring sexual life, that was just my ego speaking. I had to admit, I did have a sexual life at last. Regarding the divorce proceeding amicably, let me clarify that just because she signed the divorce papers doesn't mean everything was finalized. I said that I felt free, thus I was free. Divorce procedures still take time, but if you have a skilled attorney and need to travel, you can still attend court sessions via Zoom. It was not 2 weeks, even if it seemed really quick. Not the divorce being finalized, but her signing the paperwork was the moment I felt free. P.S. A few people compared it to Reacher. I was unaware that there was a TV series. Up until now, I was only aware of the films. It appears that I have 2 seasons to catch up on. That show is excellent. Now that it appears that the original poster has addressed a number of the queries in the comment section, we can jump right to the update to find out how the tale concludes. But first, if you're liking this video so far, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a remark or a response to the previous question I presented. Let's now provide the update to wrap up this tale. So, to put it another way, my ex-wife and I just happened to cross paths. Or rather, she happened to run into me. I had barely placed my lunch order at the cafe when a woman sat down at my table. I must have appeared perplexed as she gave me a disbelieving look and said, "It's really you. You don't recognize me, do you?" she asked, and I looked more closely and saw who she was. I mean, it was unexpected for me to see her again after a 5-year absence. Seated before me was she. It took me many seconds to identify her. She has a distinct appearance. Her hair is colored and styled differently. She's back to wearing spectacles. She was a college student when I last saw her, and she didn't wear nearly as much makeup as she always did. Without sugarcoating anything, she looked stunning. She desired to make up lost time. I told her I had plans afternoon, but we could eat lunch together because I planned to be friendly. I invited her to lunch, and that's when I found out that most of her pals had broken up with her because she couldn't afford their opulent trips, lunches, spa days, etc. She moved into an apartment after selling the house. She met the guy she is currently seeing at her job, which she currently holds. Her life now is good and ordinary, not ostentatious. I don't need Reddit's encouragement to despise her and take nuclear retaliation, even though I know they want it. It's not necessary for us to be enemies just because we won't be friends. Yes, I paid for the lunch, and sure, I gave her a final hug. I did add her back on Instagram, but I'm not giving her my contact details. It seems sufficient to me. In addition, I received an invitation to a small South American nation from a distant colleague who discovered my tale on Reddit. I'm really thinking about it. It wouldn't take more than a few weeks to drive through his country and eat the food he recommended. Since I'm not a bike rider, I just followed him and his girlfriend around in a car. I must admit, OP, that this is a fantastic update, and not just because you saw her, spoke with her, or met her. No, I'm not that interested in your ex-wife. I am saying that this is a terrific update because you are undoubtedly in a better position. There's simply not much more to say other from that. I'll just say that I hope your trip is as successful as possible. Hopefully, it will be just as amazing as the experiences you've had thus far. Opie, I appreciate you sharing and take care. Let's end this video with a post that will lift your spirits. This post was made by Charming University 98 and can be found on the Petty Revenge subreddit. Since I had higher credit than the other 3 roommates when I was a college student, I registered our TV and internet under my name. Otherwise, the $600 deposit would have been due. Upon signing up, the cable company provided me a $300 Visa gift card. I called them 2 months later because the gift card had never come. They said they mailed it a few weeks ago, and I eventually found out through Visa that it was used at the liquor store, Target, and Whataburger around my house. I'm upset because I didn't know which of my roommates used it, even though it was evident who had. A few weeks later, the second roommate reported that their $200 Target birthday gift card was missing. The store was able to inform his mother that it had been used at the Target store close to our house because she still had the receipt. We've now realized it's probably one of the other 2 housemates, even though he seems like he's upset too. After a few weeks, the wallet of the third roommate vanishes. Her vehicle key was tied to her wallet, and her car was parked at the house, so we turned the house upside down and searched inside for it. She is tearing the house apart, crying, shouting, hyperventilating, throwing things everywhere, and generally in a complete meltdown. We were all a little astonished that she would be that concerned about her pocketbook because we had never seen her act in this way. Sure, it's stressful, but I was really worried about her reaction. She implies that it is roommate number 4, the only one who hasn't had anything stolen yet, when she says the gift card thief must have taken it. Her wallet was discovered in my car's trunk a few days later. Together, we had gone grocery shopping, and I assumed she placed it in the trunk during the unloading process. Holy crap, I thought to myself, I discovered her wallet. I was so happy to see that I had actually located her wallet that I opened it immediately after that. Whoa! The 2 pilfered gift cards are prominently displayed. My name was definitely printed on the Visa gift card, and roommate number 2's mother had scrawled something in Sharpie on his gift card. She was having a tantrum, I realized, because she thought we would find out that she was the thief. I placed the wallet, complete with cash, on the inner lip of the trunk such that it was hidden from view unless you inclined farther inside the vehicle. I avoided confronting her because, at the time, I detested conflict and was a major people pleaser. I wanted to be liked by everyone. I also liked seeing her suffer. Without the title, which was in the glove box of her locked car, the locksmith would not be able to make her a new key. Her vehicle needed to be hauled to the dealership. I do recall that on the first day that her wallet vanished, she phoned the locksmith because she assumed it was in her car. The fact that the locksmith only took money for the weekend visit instead of actually unlocking her car infuriated her. Was he making fun of a simple-minded college student? Perhaps. That was more than 10 years ago. I was 21, and I'm sure the intricacies of her entire event escaped my adult vodka brain. She replaced her title, keys, and driver's license for approximately $500 in total, not to mention that she was unable to use her car for 2 weeks. Her wallet remained in my car when I moved out of state, and it took me several months to finally throw it in the garbage. The cosmos will sometimes help you exact small-time retribution. Okay, OP, so in my country, and I suppose in other countries as well, stealing from another thief carries a 100-year pardon. I appreciate you sharing,